Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Ultima Final Fantasy, the Ultimate Final Fantasy podcast. I am Joe.
I am Caleb.
And today we are going to be doing another spotlight.
It's been a little while since we've had one of these, hasn't it?
On the guy that gave us tactics.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I actually don't really know jack about this guy. To be honest, I don't know shit about him. So
Neither does the English language internet. So normally those things only take like 2 hours to prepare, and this time it took about 4.5.
Oh, wow.
Because I had to go through a very lengthy... Mostly it was all from like a very lengthy Japanese language interview and some bad Google Translate and some... It was pain. But I got a few pages on him, so we'll talk all about him. But before we get to that, where are you in Final Fantasy Tactics?
Well, that's a good question. I still have beaten the game. I haven't gone back and unbeaten it as of yet.
Oh, no? You don't want to restart?
No, you know what? Honestly, though, my work situation has changed for the better yet again. For a little while, they had us like amongst the peons. But now we are in our own little room again. And yes, we're right next to the general manager's office. And perhaps playing games might not be the best with that. But I've been able to get away with it all week. And I was honestly thinking about just getting more of the Lions and just playing through that version too. But that's kind of excessive.
That is excessive.
So I decided against it. And I haven't gone back into tactics yet. What I'm planning on doing, though, is... probably around like the last week of you playing. So once you get to probably week 4, because week 4 is
Chapter 4
or Chapter 4, yeah.
Okay.
You kind of zoom through the game for a bit, and then Chapter 4 hits, and there are a couple fights in there that are really fucking hard. And so once you get probably around Chapter 4, I'll go back in and try to grab the optional characters that I have yet to get in the game. I think there are like 3 or 4 of them that I have to do some missions and some other shit to grab. So
okay.
I'll do more. I haven't touched it this week. I haven't played any Final Fantasy, actually.
I'm making, I think, good progress. I'm probably in the middle of Chapter 2 right now. And I think Ramza thought that Delita died, and then he comes back, and then they get the princess, and yada yada yada. That's where I'm at right now, and I understand the game now, and am eternally frustrated with how slow this game is. Like the idea of going into a fight and knowing that I have my hands tied for the next 30 minutes. It's like playing a League of Legends game. It's like I can't do anything until this is done.
Yeah.
There's no pause function either, so the game is just evil and will rack up time if you decide to walk away for a second. The game just decides to punish you for that. But if the game were like 10% faster, I'd be having a better time. But I am playing the War of the Lions version. Maybe I wouldn't feel it as much if there was no lag during the spells. But.
You know what? The battles are quite epic, I would say. I mean, they do take their time. And one thing I notice about my version...
Okay, they take their time, and if I get to a hard fight, it's a restart after 30 minutes.
Yeah.
It's not a restart after like, oh... This is obviously too much after 5 minutes. This is brutal.
Don't worry. The really brutal fight that has been called the hardest in the game, and I kind of agree.
Kind of?
It's not a 30-minute brutal fight. It's a one-and-done situation where you just die and it's over. So, I mean, you at least have that to look forward to. A situation where you die within like 2 minutes of starting the fight. You get a nice little dialogue box, and then he one-shots you or two-shots you, and you're dead.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's
better.
You got something to look forward to. Quick deaths.
Yeah. I would look forward to quick deaths.
The sad part is that there's another fight after that one without the ability to save.
You know what else is pissing me off?
What?
Auto potions finickiness. So auto potion works most of the time. But sometimes, especially if it's a story fight, which is, of course, exactly when you freaking want it, or if it's a special ability from something, Auto potion will not work. Auto potion will just decide, I'm not out of potions. I checked thoroughly. And then they would be hit later. My character would be hit later and would use auto potion just fine. The game just decides randomly, it seems, when auto potion is going to be used.
Yeah, auto potion isn't a constant. It has a percentage chance, I think. I'm not sure. I'm not 100% sure what all goes into it. But yeah, it is frustrating at times because there will be boss fights where I would get 2 hits in a row, 2 big hits, and I would not use auto potion at all. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to have to do this thing. I'm going to have to manually waste my turn on a potion. And the suckiest part, though, the worst part of this game, or at least the most frustrating thing, I was on a boss fight, a 1v1 fight. Rom's on another character, right? And I picked up a high potion in the battle before, and auto potion uses the lowest potion you have. So I accidentally picked up a high potion, couldn't get rid of it. There was no menu. I couldn't throw it out, and a high potion would be used instead of an X potion. And high potion doesn't do jack shit.
Do you have to, with auto potion, do you have to have... I didn't know that.
There you go. Chase in the chat said it's based on bravery. Higher bravery increases the chance. It does, but it does. Sometimes you'll get it every time, and sometimes you won't get it at all. So I think it still is RNG. But
well, Chase, he says it with such just confidence. So I believe him. It's got to be based on bravery.
All right.
Yeah, it's got to be. Thanks, Chase. What was I about to say? I was about to say something.
About potions.
About potions. Okay. Do you need the chemist ability high potion in order to use the high potion in auto potion?
That I don't know.
Did
but
you ever build up to high potion with chemist?
Yeah, I got X potion. And
you did that for everyone?
No, you don't need it actually. No.
Okay, because I've been dreading the idea of having to use other stuff, and Jake's face making reactions like he's the one who's talking to me right now is driving me nuts from 8 feet behind you, Schweiss. I can't. I know for podcast listeners. Okay, so Jake came over really early. And Jake is like nodding his head, and shaking his head and making faces, and he's just behind Schweiss and not on mic, and it is driving me insane, Jake. Just saying.
Yeah, you can use X potions without getting the ability.
So you said, "Oh no, you don't need them," but 10 seconds before you did, Jake started shaking his head. It's like, I know where this conversation's going.
Spoiler.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, thank God.
Jake
that would
knows everything.
suck if you had to go chemist and learn X potion for them to use it.
Dude, I was considering it. I was like, am I going to have to build up my chemist class
for everybody?
For everybody.
No, you just need to not have any regular potions. Sell them all off.
I need to figure out how to get monk, because people in the chat have been telling me, you need to get monk, dude, for damage. I'm honestly not digging the knight ability too much, because their abilities are kind of, you can rend helm and stuff, but I don't know. It's not that exciting to me.
That's the class I used at the very end.
Is it?
Yeah, but I also used ninja to get dual wield, so I had 2 swords.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah. And they were knight swords, so they were sick.
All right. So did you, instead of having JP boost, you had to... you did the equip?
I traded
weapons. Okay.
I would definitely
do a JP boost right now, so everybody kind of gets their stuff up. I'm sure at some point when the game gets hard, I'll have to make some changes.
Yeah, well, having JP boost is great because you can. You just switch on a new class and get the job points up really quickly, get the abilities you need from that class, and then move on.
Yeah.
I would recommend checking out Ninja for sure. And Dragoon. Dragoon's really cool.
Yeah, I'm still hanging on with the 2 knights, 1 white mage, 1 black mage. Yeah,
black mage is fine. Did you get flare?
Not yet. I'm saving up.
Oh yeah, you want it.
And he gains JP the slowest.
Yeah,
because the use of the black mage is pretty limited, and he's often attacked because he's weaker, so it's just building him up has just been a lot slower than building up the knights or even the white mage.
I would recommend keeping on the basic skill move so that you can use accumulate or whatever it is in your Your version of the thing where they charge. Focus, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Keep that on there. That's something I didn't do, but I
have everybody have items so that someone can throw on a Phoenix down if necessary. But I've just been doing that because I was leveling up, and that was super useful then.
Yeah, and see, for me, I had the chemist / white mage or holy man, whatever I ended up choosing for my healer. And then I have Ramza usually have items, so I have one backup in case shit hits the fan.
Oh, one backup. Yeah, that makes sense instead of...
Shit hits the fan, though, I'll tell you that. There's one fight where Ramza's like stuck behind a fence, and it's like him versus one guy, and then the rest of the team versus like 7 guys, and those guys just demolish the chemist. Have you gotten the Mustadio character yet?
The Mustadio?
Mustadio, yeah.
Is that a function on the PSP?
Yeah,
Mustadio?
Yeah.
Mustadio, I believe, yeah.
The engineer guy?
Yeah, just got him.
Yeah, the game has the biggest boner for him ever. It has, like, whenever I had him in my party, and you need him for the specialty quests, like the side quests to get all these characters, he's directly attached to a shitload of endgame stuff, from what the chat was telling me. But the game, during this section, it just had the biggest hard-on for Mustadio, and it was insane. Like, the game just had no mercy at all.
Yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at in tactics. Just grinding along, 3 weeks behind Schweiss. That's where
Did I beat it that long ago?
I started 3 weeks later.
Oh, okay.
So that's how I'm kind of judging it. But you want to get into news?
Yeah, let's do it.
News. All right, so we got a bunch of new characters for a bunch of different games. There was new characters announced for Mobius, Final Fantasy, some other game, and then Dissidia, of course. Dissidia is the only one that we care about because it's the one we're actually going to have to play.
Are you going to pre-order that thing now that you are in a much better financial position?
Probably not.
Okay.
I'm not going to get it till I have to get it.
It's I think this is going to be my most unwise financial decision in a long time. $200 on that for the special edition. I don't think it's worth it.
You're doing it anyway?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Okay.
I'm just letting you know. I'm not
going to stop you.
I anticipate beforehand.
There is something that has been announced that I will be buying. Straight up. Okay. So, I mean, I'm not saying I'm not against the buying of the FFs ahead of time. I mean, certainly if it's a Roman numeral, I'm on that.
Yeah.
Dissidia NT.
Well, you say that, but Final Fantasy 12, the Zodiac Age, has a Roman numeral in it. And
it also has, a Roman numeral without a subtitle.
Okay, all right.
So, if it's just FF and a Roman numeral, I will then pre-order. Don't worry. If it's FF, Roman numeral, blah, 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 probably not.
All right.
Okay? I do have a hierarchy on my FFs, on the ones that I see that are important, okay?
True, but then we get games like Tactics that perhaps throw a wrench in that.
Nope.
You don't like it more than any of the main series ones?
It's not the same. I can understand people's love of Tactics, and we'll see how I feel when I'm done with the game completely. But to consider it like, it should have been a Roman numeral, which I don't think anyone has ever said that I know of, but it seems like a sentiment that might happen. That would be ridiculous.
Just the style is so different.
It's so different of a styled game.
Yeah, I think the story is better than some that are part of the main series. Like FF1 doesn't have a story really, so
sure
has like a minute of cutscene and dialogue that matters. But
I'll see later on. There's been some betrayal so far with Argoth and stuff. Spoilers. But I don't know. I'll decide that before the review.
All right, I'll respect your hierarchy for now.
All right. Cloud of Darkness was revealed as a new character.
More like Cloud of Titties. That's what I'm seeing right now.
Yeah.
I saw this and I had to tab away at work. I was like, Jesus. Tits McGee.
So we got a character trailer with Power Man 5000 doing the theme here.
Yeah, whether they know it or not.
Wow. There's just an upside down heart over a nipple.
Yeah. I don't remember Heart of Darkness being that fucking hot.
Yeah. I also remember her being green.
Yeah, green.
What is this whitewashing of Cloud of Darkness?
Yeah. We should start a movement. Make Cloud of Darkness green again.
Oh, boy. So anyway, that'll be part of the October update of the game, I guess.
Very nice, very nice.
Oh, what the crap? Something go out of order? I think something did go out of order. Okay. There's a new patch trailer for patch 4.1 of FF14. There's going to be Ivalice Alliance raid, new story stuff, of course, that we're not going to see for a while.
Oh, yeah.
Let's see. The raid is going to be the Unrending Coil of Bahamut Ultimate. The players will have to have level 340 items.
Jesus. That'll probably be a joke and easy when we go back in, though.
Wow. Yeah, it probably will be by then.
Yeah.
Whatever the next thing will be the hardest thing. But want to watch the patch trailer?
Yeah, let's see what they got.
Okay.
4.5 minutes of patch trailer.
There's voice acting this time.
A
Andrew.
personal summons from the Scions. This must be important business indeed. Oh boy. Though, if it concerns anything so underhand as an assassination, I fear I can be of little help.
Stormblood.
Suffice it to say, our people have had their fill of kings, which means we need to find a new way forward.
Hearken to me, brothers and sisters of Alamigo. Now is the time that we, the people of Alamigo, must decide what manner of nation we will build for ourselves.
Oh, got some fighting some hands coming out of the ground.
Looked like the zombie president from FF8 for a second there.
Yeah, pretty good. Cool little behemoth fight or whatever.
You're wasting your time.
Yeah, that's
All of this is pointless. There's no reason to keep me alive, and you know it.
throwing rocks at people.
So very dramatic.
Yeah, I was kind of upset when they did keep her alive at the end of 14. I was like, why are you not killing this chick? Like, this is where you hang her and get it over with. She's just going to come back to bite you in the ass.
You ready for the biggest piece of news?
Sure.
At least in my opinion, the biggest piece of news. I'm sure FF14 fans might disagree.
Yeah.
Final Fantasy Ultimania, the series of books that have been put out for these games over time that
Mostly
we've always been
Japan.
like, oh, we wish we could have an English version of this so
Yeah.
that we could dive real deep into some of these games. We're going to get English translations in the summer of next year for the FF1 through FF6 Final Fantasy Ultimanias. So, let's see, where is that? Could you read that bit there?
Yeah, Dark Horse and Square Enix are thrilled to offer the first of 3 volumes celebrating the entrancing lore and exciting development of the initial 6 entries into one of the most successful game franchises in history. Final Fantasy Ultimania Archive is an astonishing journey through the creation of the seminal role-playing epic,
Johnny.
officially licensed for the first time ever. This holy grail of Final Fantasy fandom is packed full of original concept art, process pieces, and notes from the original artists and designers chronicling the creation of these timeless games. Containing a total of 300 pages, collected in a high-quality hardcover binding, Final Fantasy Ultimania Archive Volume 1 remains faithful to its original Japanese source material, while simultaneously offering unparalleled accessibility for Western readers. Yeah, because we can read it now. No Final Fantasy collection is complete without this beautiful tome of art, lore, and history.
So it is available for pre-order on Amazon, and a good way to go through and do that is by going through ultimafinalfantasy.com, clicking through the Amazon link there, and then buying yourself Final Fantasy Ultimania Archive Volume 1. It's $23.99 right now. I am going to get that.
That's not bad for over 300 pages.
I am straight up going to get that because that is going to be so useful for the show. And also, I'm so interested in especially those early days of the making of these FF games.
Yeah, definitely. That's like the article says. I mean, that is something that you kind of need for your Final Fantasy collection. It wouldn't be complete without it.
That's right. So, kind of a slim news week. With the exception of that Ultimania thing, thank you, Shinru, for giving us the news this week. He does post an article every Friday, I believe, on ultimafinalfantasy.com. So if you want to go there, you can check out his article. Schweiss, where else can they find us?
You can find us on YouTube, youtube.com/ultimafinalfantasy. You can see all of our past streams, for the most part, gameplay, all sorts of good videos. There's hundreds of videos on there over the course of this podcast. Plenty of content to grind through, if you will. You can go to twitch.tv/ultimafinalfantasy. Joe has been streaming Final Fantasy Tactics
That's right.
pretty regularly throughout the weeks, and he still probably has another week or two left on that easily. So come hang out with us there. You can go to Twitter and tweet me at UFF Podcast.
Tweet me at Joseph DeGolier.
You can go to our Facebook page, facebook.com/Ultima Final Fantasy. I almost said something else. Very strange.
What?
And there are a couple great ways to support the show. Like Joe said earlier, if you guys order on Amazon, you can click through our website, ultimafinalfantasy.com. We have an Amazon link. Everything you buy through that link, we get a small kickback. Doesn't cost you a thing. We have a Patreon page. It's patreon.com/ultimafinalfantasy. There's some really cool rewards on there. I need to get in touch with some people because I think it's time to do another episode invite. Have some people on to talk FF. It's been a while. And also, if you guys want to just throw us a buck or two, we have a PayPal link up there as well. So,
all right, Schweiss, let's talk about the creator of FF Tactics, Yasumi Matsuno. Now that we've officially entered into the tactics run of the Ivalice era, what?
I don't know.
I figured that now would be a good time to shine a little light on a huge force behind the scenes of the tactics games. Video game designer, director, and producer, one with an absolutely stellar career, Yasumi Matsuno. Have you ever heard of this guy before?
Only heard his name,
Okay.
but that's about it.
All right. You've heard his name because we have briefly talked about him before on other spotlights and making of certain games. Yasumi Matsuno was born October 24th, 1965 in Myoko in the Niigata Prefecture of Japan. Growing up in a rural environment, Matsuno claims that he was very isolated as a child, which I kind of find interesting. Thus, nearly all of his time was spent in front of television screens, watching movies or watching TV, reading books, and practicing the very, very specific hobby that he brought up in an interview of creating dioramas, especially those based on World War II. Do you know what a diorama is?
Is it like a little reenactment, like with
models,
figures? Yeah,
basically. So you create the landscape or whatever you're doing, sort of a model of a scene, and then you have your little. If it's World War II, you have your little toy soldiers and stuff like that. I had a friend growing up who would make dioramas as well. And his father, I think, still has this very, I find, odd hobby of making dioramas. And he does the same thing. He makes World War II dioramas in the basement. That's like all he does. He has glue and little soldier dudes, and he just makes dioramas. So my friend would make dinosaur dioramas. So he'd get like a dinosaur toy, and he would make, I don't know, like a paper mache landscape. I'm not exactly sure how he did it, sorry. And, put a tree in there or something like that, and they'd put the dinosaur in it. It'd be a dinosaur diorama, or a dinorama, I guess is.
I guess I have done that before, but it was more of like I made like a winter park one time out of like pine cones, and like I made like this mountain kind of a scene. So I have done a diorama, but nothing cool like a giant battle or anything, That is kind of a weird hobby, but I guess that would mean you're probably a history
cool,
buff.
Creative hobby. I did a couple model airplanes, and that's really all I ever did as a kid.
Yeah,
I did like Legos, of course.
A bridge making kit. It was actually really bitchin'. I made like little, I think it was like brick stones, and I made like a stone bridge, and like there was like one for suspension bridge as well. I never finished the suspension one. I didn't care about that, but
see, I remember the smell of the glue more than I remember the look of the model.
Yeah.
that's kind of where I'm at with that. Oddly enough, this guy, Matsuno, he was quite the indoor kid, considering that he grew up in the countryside. That's not usual. I do wonder, just speculating here, like what his parents did, what his family was doing out in the countryside, why they were out in the countryside, what they do as a living. Like, so why was he an indoor kid? I mean, indoor kid thing is more for like suburbia or urban kind of stuff. It's odd when it's countryside,
Yeah, that's true. That is kind of strange.
At least from my very limited perspective, I guess. So he had his first video game experiences as a high schooler, playing one of two arcade games at the local train station whenever he was waiting for the train. One was PacMan, which of course we all know, and we've all played at least a little bit of PacMan, I'm sure. And a game that we're probably not as familiar with, but I found out that I guess it was like the super classic game called Xevious or Xevious, or however you say this. This was an Atari game put out, and it was like a vertical shooter war game where you take on the role of a combat airplane. It's like you're looking down, you have your own troops on the ground and the enemy's troops, and you deal with all that stuff. From what I was reading anyway. I've, of course, never played this game, but that was another game that he had a real big passion for at the arcades. Have you ever heard of Xevious?
No. The one I was thinking of when you started bringing that up was like an old tank game that I played.
Okay.
But no.
It wasn't a tank game.
It seems like kind of a strange choice for Japan, but I guess as long as you're not dropping bombs, it's not as odd.
I think you are dropping bombs in that game.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right.
Jeez. See, this is where... Okay.
This is where what?
This is where it is. So last week on Nude Clan, I brought up that I had put a poll up on Twitter to say who is more offensive, me or Schweiss, and it was unanimous that it was me. I don't say crap like that.
I'm just saying it's a little culturally insensitive for them to have a game where you're dropping bombs.
Anyway, all right.
Stations. I mean, they are safe in the train station. That is...
Unless people can't hear your sarcasm. In which case, they're going, yeah, Schweiss is really sensitive to these issues.
Yeah, I am concerned for these people.
What is wrong with the people on Twitter? Anyway, I have nothing against you being offensive, Schweiss.
I don't either.
I have something against people calling me more offensive than you. I need you to be king of offense.
I was surprised too.
I'm glad.
And I said that I think I am objectively more offensive, but I don't think there's really any room for an alternate decision in that. It's me, but
all right. So Matsuno, he wanted to become a writer. Actually, all this book and television time, I guess. And he wanted to become a writer for either books or movies, but he decided to do the smart thing and go to college and study foreign policy. Finding his studies unfulfilling because he wanted to be a writer and decided to study foreign policy. Yeah. He dropped out of school after 3 years to pursue his dream. Now, I believe universities in Japan are the same as universities here, where it's 4-year degrees. So he was almost done.
wow.
I don't know about that dropping out right before you're done.
Well, it's probably what happens when you go in for something that you don't actually want to do stupidly.
Maybe.
Like, it's one thing, I don't know. I heard a quote from like Mike Rowe where he said like, don't chase what you love, like do what you need to do kind of thing.
No, of
He's
course
like-
Mike Rowe would say that.
Yeah, because he does whatever he wants.
My brand is all about the working man.
Yeah, but it is logical in that way. So, like, instead of him going to school for 3 years, he could have just done what he wanted to do all along
No.
and become the guy who made
It's
tactics.
logical in one way and not logical in another.
It's not logical to spend 3 years on it, no.
But it's not. It's also not logical to pursue a writing career.
No, that's true.
Okay.
But that's the problem, though, is that he's pursuing his dream, and that's what Michael
Okay. Here's the thing, though. There's not very much detail about how he got from place to place with these things, and it's incredible the leaps that he made in his career really early on. So he managed to get a writing gig after quitting college. So he didn't get the gig and then quit. He quit college and then got a gig really quickly, like a straight up gig as an economic reporter.
Oh, wow.
But he wanted to do something more creative, so he quit that too. And during his time in college, I guess, he was a fan, and probably at the same time as he was doing his writing gig, he was a fan of the games Ultima Online. He was a fan of Dragon Quest and The Legend of Zelda. So that's kind of where he was still interested in video games and all that stuff. So he tried to land a writing job at a gaming company, and incredibly good at getting jobs, Matsuno landed a lead planner position at a game developer called Quest right off the bat. He didn't have to build up his way through the company. He was in charge of a game.
Oh, wow.
He got a job and was in charge of a game. This guy pisses me off.
Yeah, I was going to say, this guy's probably triggering the shit out of you.
Job searching I've had to do,
What?
and I had to settle at
I actually
FedEx.
finished school. You
Yeah,
asshole.
I know.
And this guy just jumps on willy-nilly. I think I've heard of the company Quest, too. So, like,
So, the first game he did planning for, which was his official thing, he was a planner, was for the NES game Conquest of the Crystal Palace. And not much is known about the game development, except that it was the first time that Matsuno and his later partner in crime, composer Masaharu Iwata, which we have heard that name before, believe me,
yeah.
began working together. So almost every game that Matsuno has worked on, especially the ones he's been in charge of and not just written the stories for, he has worked with that composer.
Okay, cool.
So keep that in mind. Moving up to a director position, he now had a new title as director, not just planner, which I think planner must have been like a producer writing role.
Yeah.
But director was straight up, it's his.
Yeah, I think it's probably
his project.
scenario planner.
And I did find out, because I've always been wondering this when it came to Japanese development, even when it comes to game development here, a lot of times, I mean, they'll call the game designer, the lead designer is the person kind of in charge of the game, and then there'll be a director over the whole project, but there's a lot of the creativity of the game itself like goes into the designer's hands. And I always wondered, like, in Japanese game development, is it the same way? Is it sort of like movie development where the director, it's like their vision and they're in charge of everyone else? And it is that way in Japan. So director of a Japanese video game is like the same role that a movie director has, where it's like they're the ones in charge, and then the producer works with them on the sort of business logistical aspects of it.
Oh, okay.
For the most part, and then there's some and I found that out actually via the interview with this guy where he explained what the director did. I was like, thank you. I've been wondering that for my entire time doing these podcasts.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, who's really the one behind the great games?
So it is the director.
Okay, so it is.
It is the director.
Okay.
That's what I now know, according to Matsuno. And I assume it's just that way. I assume now that it's just that way in the Japanese
that does
video
make
game
sense
industry.
Because Sakaguchi is like God status, and he wouldn't really be if he.
So
didn't
he
have
directed
that
the
kind of
first
a
5
role.
Final Fantasy games.
Yeah.
Sakaguchi. So got it. We got this. He moved up to that position at Quest, and Matsuno pitched a fantasy RPG strategy game that he had come up with the idea of that would be put on the new Super NES system. So the last game was for the NES. This one's for the Super NES. Borrowing strategy, fantasy, and active time elements from the games that I do not know, by the way. Nobunaga's Ambition, Daisen Ryaku, and Master of Monsters.
Sounds like a game for Bandrum, Beastmaster game.
I guess, yeah. It was sort of the ideas of all the amalgamations of these games. The game that he pitched would come to be known as Ogre Battle, The March of the Black Queen. If I were to describe the gameplay from what I've read to a Final Fantasy player, I would say it's like Final Fantasy Tactics, but like a little wider, a little bit more spread out, and with a much simpler map. In fact, the map is just flat.
Okay.
It's like playing a game of Stratego from what I looked at on this game. So he kind of had this tactics thing right off the bat with his basically the first game that he was totally in charge of. A couple interesting facts about this game. The North American edition of Ogre Battle for the Super NES is considered one of the rarest games of all time, since only 5,000 copies were ever shipped.
Jeez, 5,000?
Yeah, so if you were one of those people who has decided that they are going to collect every single Super NES game ever,
Oh, wow, yeah.
have fun. There were only 5,000 of them. I'm sure a section of that was thrown away. Doesn't that hurt you?
wasted,
That hurts
yeah.
you inside, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's crazy, yeah.
Another odd fact: Ogre Battle, the words Ogre Battle, that was a Queen song, and that's where it was taken from. And also, Queen's name is used in March of the Black Queen as part of the title. Basically, Matsuno is a gigantic fan of Queen and refers to them often in all of his games.
Wow, that's kind of cool.
So there's like little Queen references sprinkled in everywhere in his games with namings of certain things and little plot lines and stuff like that.
Wow, that's way cool.
It's crazy. So I actually... Yeah, I haven't listened to Ogre Battle. I was going to last night, and then I didn't. So after the success of Ogre Battle, which was successful, Matsuno would get to work on a sequel. And this sequel would be made for 3D. This would be made for the PlayStation later. And it took a long time to make this game, actually. And he would change the game in a lot of drastic ways, focusing more on intimate battles in a certain space, with the world being a 3D one. Behold, the awkwardly titled Tactics Ogre, Let Us Cling Together. Now, Ogre Battle was pretty much FF Tactics, but this, if you've seen screenshots of it, was pretty much the exact same game, dude. I've seen screenshots of this game, Tactics Ogre, and it is the same.
Really?
You could have told me it came from FF Tactics. Like, even kind of the color scheme. It's kind of like gray, like dark and browns, a lot of that, earthy tones. In a 3D map, like little houses and stuff, and people are like running around the map like they do in Tactics.
Wow.
It looks the same.
I know I think they re-released one of those on PSP, Tactics Ogre games.
Yeah.
Pretty sure, so I'll have to try it.
And
one
I
of these
mean,
days.
it's only the same in the gameplay sense. It did have quite a storyline that was really important to the game, I guess. It was multi-branching and it apparently was like really tragic and oddly based on the Bosnian genocide. But it was a multi-branching storyline. So unlike Tactics, which is very linear, that game was all about different choices that you made in game as well. So that was a different aspect of Tactics Ogre. And Tactics Ogre was an extremely popular game, and RPG Gamer, which I believe is a magazine, they called it Forever a Masterpiece, basically. And also, I got to tell you that Let Us Cling Together is a Queen song. And a good Queen song. I did actually listen to that track while I was doing this write-up. It's a very good song. It's on Queen 2, I believe, or maybe not. No, the other song was on Queen 2. Not one to stay anywhere for very long, though. 1995, Yasumi Matsuno quit Quest to move on to the big leagues. The people that I believe that now publish the remakes and remasters and sequels to the Tactics Ogre games, Square. He would quit and get a job at Squaresoft, getting to work on a game very, very, very similar to Tactics Ogre, a game called Bahamut Lagoon.
It's a very odd name.
Yes. Which would later, of course, be named, the Final Fantasy title would be slapped right on that Bahamut Lagoon, and it would be called Final Fantasy Tactics in order to sell more.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know it. I know it. Everybody knows it.
That's right. They do.
Tactics, of course, would turn out to be kind of legendary, as in hearing people tell us to get Tactics, to play Tactics is a legendary pain in the butt, as it's a huge game now. I remember that Honest Game Trailers thing where they take honest trailers and then make it a little crappier and make it about games. They had the FF7 Honest Game trailer, and they were like, the best Final Fantasy, and then like they had Final Fantasy Tactics on the screen for a second, and then they put FF7 over it that you've played, Like,
oh, yeah. Nice.
It's a little switcheroo. It's another one of those like, oh, Tactics was really the best Final Fantasy game. And we'll, of course, have our own review of that in a couple weeks. But anyway, that's how the game has become. I think it did really well when it came out, but now it's sort of like has this, probably out of rarity, I would say, it sort of has this extra, oomph behind it.
Yeah.
So basically creating the Ivalice universe with that game, Matsuno would stretch his strategic and tactical game designs in the very loosely related Vagrant story that would come out next. Inspired visually by the architecture of France, and they worked on that for months, I guess, like the look of the game Vagrant Story. Mm-hmm. The game was nearly canceled due to its just ambitious size that seemed like it was going to be too big for the disc that they wanted to fit it on. And but everything turned out well, and it was released in 2000, would be one of the biggest games on the PlayStation of that year, and would earn the coveted 40 out of 40 from Famitsu magazine. Now, I didn't have this in my write-up, but Matsuno was the first game director to have two of his games have 40 out of 40.
Wow.
On Famitsu. Next, he would oversee Final Fantasy Tactics Advanced in a producer role and also help out with the horrible play online function on FF11. But his next big gig, I would say, would be as co-director, along with Hiroyuki Ito, which we did a spotlight on before.
Oh, yeah.
Of a little PS2 game called Final Fantasy XII. FF12's development history is insane, and I'm not going to get into it here, but Matsuno was one of the people deeply upset by Sakaguchi's messy departure from Square Enix. Now remember, Sakaguchi took half of Square Enix, or of FF11's or 12's development team with him to go make his new game company.
Yeah.
And they just did it. And Matsuno, of course, in charge of FF12, has half of his team taken away, and he didn't want Sakaguchi to leave the company. And he quit Square Enix because of it. After a few months, I believe, quit Square Enix over illness, which we talked about, whether or not he was actually ill or if he was trying to cover it up. So that may or may not be true, and I think we talked about that on the FF12 review.
Yeah, we did. We brought it up.
He's no longer part of Square Enix. It was interesting when I was looking up information on this guy. He described the two companies he worked for before. He described Quest as a dictatorship, and he described Square Enix as like a sort of a democracy. That's what he called them. Now he has no government. He's now an anarchist.
Yeah.
So since 2006, Matsuno has been a free man. Basically, he has worked officially under at least one company since, but a freelance game developer that many companies have clamored for. He wrote, often he's just kind of the writer for these games. He wrote the super violent Wii game Mad World. Do you remember that? Do you remember advertisements for it? And it was like, ooh, it's Nintendo, but it's going to be brutal.
I think I might.
It was like a Sin City looking game.
Oh, yeah,
a lot of blood.
Yes. I remember seeing commercials for it. Never played a second.
That was a game I wanted to play and never did play.
Yeah.
That's just one of those. And he would write the story for that game as well as the 3DS game Crimson Cloud. He was asked also to help on another Tactics Ogre game and even worked with Hironobu Sakaguchi in his Mistwalker company on his mobile title Terra Battle. Currently, he's working on 2 games for mobile platforms, Unsung Story and Lost Order, which I guess we'll find out about later on. But anyway, that was his role in the company, man. He made these big strategic kind of landmark games for the company. Hironobu Sakaguchi left, and he said, screw it, I'm going to leave, and now he's a freelancer at this point, which sounds like a story of someone else in the company as well. I think Sakaguchi had a similar sort of run where he was like the go-to guy for forever, and then he just had to leave. And now he's a freelancer. And even this guy...
You mean not Sakaguchi, but...
Or not Sakaguchi, Nobuo Uematsu. Sorry.
Nobuo. Right.
In conclusion, for those guys who think that the greatest FF Tactics or FF game of all time is Tactics, you know who to think. Matsuno, actually, I think... I've played a little bit of Vagrant Story, playing FF Tactics right now, even with FF12. I think, actually, Matsuno, especially in the gameplay department... Even in the design department, because those are all in the same universe of games.
Yeah.
And even like when I looked at screenshots of Tactics, Ogre, and Ogre Battle.
Right.
I can tell, and you can't usually tell this with the directors, unless maybe we're really paying attention. You can tell he has a unique style, and that he has a very strong creative presence on the things that he has been in charge of. Unusual for video game development.
Yeah. I would say that is kind
of strange. Or maybe
strange.
It's not, and we just don't talk about directors in video games like we do movies. And so just not talking about them, we're not noticing them.
I would also say that, the directors for video games, I mean, they don't really get legendary quite the same way movie directors do.
Right.
So, it's not quite the same situation, so.
And I think with video games, maybe it is more of a... I mean, movies are super collaborative, but then one guy gets all the credit. And maybe with video games, it just hasn't gotten there yet. It's gotten to, it's a group. It's more of a group mentality, and people are actually, giving credit to the group.
Yeah.
More than just the one guy, because oftentimes, like, the director isn't really, like, he's the thing that everything has to filter through. But there's so many other things so many other jobs that contribute to maybe what you love about a certain movie or game that really is more of them than the director, but you're always going to praise the director for it.
Right, yeah.
Anyway, Matsuno, I think, is one of those guys that you can okay, that's a Matsuno game. It's obvious. It's so especially in the gameplay part of things, that's a Matsuno game.
Yeah. I have seen stuff for the ogre that's on PSP, and I think it does look pretty similar to Tactics. So it's
Yeah.
I don't know. It is kind of a unique style of game. Honestly, I've never really seen anything outside of the ones that we've mentioned that really look like that. I mean, I have seen a couple screenshots of Fallout Tactics, and it seems kind of similar-ish.
I don't think he's part of that.
No, definitely not. And Fallout 1 and 2 they're both tactic games too, which is bizarre.
Are they just taking this gameplay?
It looks
thing
kind of that
and
way.
then okay.
I own them. I've never opened the game ever.
It's a little bit Stratego. It's a little bit chess. But then there's RPG elements like your strength and stats matter.
Right, yeah.
It's not just, abilities or placement, which those other games it's more important for. So I don't know. Yeah, I think he created a sort of weird subgenre that has yet to be like super mainstream. But
yeah, it's still kind of like an underground.
Yeah, I would say like his kind of game design would work really well in a mobile environment.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think that's why they went that direction with Advance and Advance.
I mean, with
2.
PS1 era, I could see that being a AAA title sort of design. But nowadays, I couldn't see that happening.
Yeah.
That's like a mini game-esque sort of thing.
Yeah, although I do think it would be really cool if they did like a full-on remake, or maybe even just a super, super high-def remaster of Tactics, and like your dudes just like, they just look real, and they just walk a couple steps, throw their stone. Like they can make it look really good.
And they just wait.
Yeah, just wait. Yeah.
Wait for everybody's turns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The one thing that frustrates me one of the big things that frustrates me in Tactics is, I don't know if you get this when you play, but it's like sometimes when the enemy just takes forever to decide what they want to do. Like it'll go to the enemy and they'll select themselves, and then they just like sit there in like 10 seconds, and they're like, all right, I'll go over here. You ever notice that in the game?
I don't think so.
I think that's what gives it the chess like scenario where they're like, okay, I need to move here so that I don't get hit from these guys, kind of a thing. So I don't know.
I find the game so slow.
Yeah.
I really wish that the enemy's turns went faster.
Yeah.
I just really wish that the enemy's turns went faster. And also that the camera wasn't a forced 45-degree angle.
Yeah, it is pretty limited.
They make buildings and they're like in the way of crap. Like a building will be in the way of the shadow of the building across from it that you're moving a guy like into, so you can't see. You can
also move
spots.
like the camera angle a little bit more. It's not just straight 45. You can get elevation.
Oh yeah, you can get elevation.
Yeah,
but
so it helps.
It's always at a 45. The game's map is always at the corner.
No, I know, but you can like lift the camera angle up.
Yeah, believe me,
there.
I do.
Okay.
It does. There are parts of certain maps of this game, at least in my version, that you cannot see.
Well, you know what? I will say this: the soundtrack in your version of the game doesn't. It sounds like shit when you stream it too. I don't know what's up with that.
It's just when I'm streaming it. Okay. So it's because of the adapters that it's going through. It's taken the tinny part of the bass tones and taking the bass out of it and just leaving the tin. So you're hearing like a zzz when you would have been hearing like a get what I'm saying?
Yeah. All right, as long as it's
just because I stuck the headphones straight in and I'm like, I don't hear this.
All right.
I hear those notes. I hear that sound, but it is not as front forward, and it feels right, and it's like in the background of the soundscape.
Right, yeah.
If I'm trying to explain what I'm hearing, but that's kind of what I got.
All right.
Anyway, so way to go, Matsuno.
Yeah.
We got some questions.
It's kind of crazy. I was thinking like partway through this,
I was like, I think this is the guy that left during 12, and then
yep, it's the guy that left during 12. Let's dive into those questions though.
Questions for us. We would like to hear from you. To our forums. Contact us on Twitter. Get on and ask your questions. We'll answer them when we
right, so someone's asking us, and I'm sorry if we already read this. I got a little mixed up on the questions this week. But we had an FF10 question before, and I'm wondering if it's the same one. Could you press Control on that keyboard? Let me zoom up here. All right, thank you. All right, so this is from Knox at Night 88. I've been playing through some of the older FF games recently and finally returned to FF10. FF10 is obviously not as glorious as some modern games, but it's an incredible step up from FF9. And this got me thinking, which of the pre-FF10 games holds up visually? I would also caveat this by saying that you should only compare the original versions for the questions. Many of the remakes, like FF4, help overcome previous deficiencies. In my opinion, only FF6 and 9 are still enjoyable visually. 7 and 8 are pretty hard to look at outside of the battles and FMVs. The other sprite-based games are quaint, but lack the vivid color necessary to provide visual satisfaction. Still enjoy playing the previous games, but I'll admit that I've stopped playing some of the older ones recently, simply because I don't like looking at them. Schweiss, you got a problem with the pre-FF10 games visually?
No, I think 6 looks amazing, and 9 looks fine, but I would honestly say FF4 looks really good too. And I don't dislike the sprites. I mean, obviously, Final Fantasy VI has mastered the sprites by then. Square Enix knew exactly, or Squaresoft knew exactly what they needed to do to make the sprites look as good as possible on the Super Nintendo. And FF6 is that, and I think it is a great looking game. I think it holds up really well. 7 doesn't hold up for shit, to be completely honest. It looks awful, and it's a great game, obviously, but the Lego characters, it has aged very poorly, I would say. I don't know if I agree with the FF8 comment that he made. I think FF8 looks fine, but I would say that 9 definitely holds up stronger, so I'm fine with both of them. And I think 10 obviously is a massive step up for the series. That's when they really truly nailed the realism element of Final Fantasy. I know they tried it with 8, and 8's rough, and I think they did a good job overall with it, but 10 I think blows all of them out of the water.
Okay.
Up to that point.
I think this is less about the graphics of a game and more about the type of televisions that we have now versus what we had then. Your eyes have not changed. Okay, humanity's eyes have not changed, and suddenly what was a crappy image before has now, or excuse me, what was a good image before has now become a crappy image. That has not necessarily been the case when it comes to the graphic quality of these games. So a certain amount of pixels and a certain amount of space with a certain amount of color range, you can make anything look good to the human eye if it is presented in the right size and on the right type of screen. So all the games up to FF12 were all games based on RCA analog color going into a tube television that would project light in a certain way, that would have these lines. What do you call those lines? I can't remember what they're called. Like scan lines or something like that. Sorry? Progressive scan? I don't know. I don't think that's it, Jake. It's something in that range, though. But the type of televisions, remember the square televisions? They projected images differently. They didn't have resolution in the same way that we do. They had, if you looked really close on those televisions, like I did when I was a kid, you would see the red, green, and blue.
Yeah.
You would see those light
within
patterns
the pixel.
And they weren't pixels, but they were little circle dot things,
yeah,
basically throughout your entire television. The games that we were playing back then were based or were made to look good on that type of screen. They weren't made to look good on the screens we have now. So if they take what was directly in the computer and we were able to play that game, it would look basically the same, but it wouldn't have the haziness like those televisions had. But then at the same time, it also wouldn't have the kind of the roundness of image that you're trying to get on that television screen. So here's what I'm saying to you. No, they technically do not hold up visually because you're playing them on a newer screen. I am sure that if you're playing one of these old games on the old systems in their original versions, then you are playing a game through a analog, which is the way that I'm playing Tactics right now, by the way. You're taking an analog signal that has to be converted over digitally. And within that conversion, and then projected onto a screen that has 8 times the resolution of what we had on our television screens just a few years ago. You're seeing things you're not supposed to see in a way that you're not supposed to see them. And then there's also a muddy quality to it because the sharpness is taken away because the scan lines aren't there.
Yeah, that's true. I don't really think that's quite what he's hitting on, though. I think he's hitting on.
Well, if you're saying you're playing the original versions of the game, then...
right? But 6 holds up way more than 5. I don't think anyone would ever deny that. 6 holds up way more than 4. Holds up better than any of the games before it, and I think it's because it's the pinnacle of the graphics that we had on the Super NES. It's true that that playing games on, like when I plug in my PS2 with my red, white, yellow cable on my plasma, obviously there are problems.
You have an LCD screen.
LCD, either way.
Yeah, I have a
it looks
plasma.
like shit compared to what it would look like if I whipped out the old box TV that weighs like 1,000 pounds.
Yeah, it would look better on the box, but then your eyes are kind of used to the higher resolution on the other TV, so you're like, let's get back to the other one.
Yeah, so I mean, that is a fair point. I still agree with him, though. I do think 6 and 9 are kind of like the high points, but again, they're the final ones on each console. Like, of course,
don't mind the old look of things, though. So maybe I'm not the right person to ask for this.
Yeah, I like the sprites. That's the thing. Is like I don't think one is.
I think there's a charm to it.
I don't think one is hard on the eyes or anything. Like 5 can be because it is kind of a gross looking at times, but I don't know. It's fun enough that I don't really notice, and I know I'm playing an older game, and I think. Honestly, I've thought this for a while now. I think if Final Fantasy 13 were a sprite game, I think we would have liked it more. And that's ridiculous. That's a ridiculous thought, but I think there's just something about it that makes it more, I don't know, it just feels more special.
I don't think you're wrong.
Yeah.
I don't think you're wrong. There is something about an image being more cartoony that we can take a more cartoony story in a little easier. There's also like a simplicity with the sprite stuff. You know that they wouldn't have hours of cutscenes. They would have said what they needed to say much more succinctly in a text box.
Yeah.
Of course, I say that, but knowing FF14 and FF11's cutscenes, maybe they wouldn't. Maybe they would just put the whole novel out there.
Yeah. This is the writers are like, oh my god, did you put that in the game?
They used to not be able to put so much text or so much graphics in because they didn't have space on the thing.
That was my first draft. I hadn't edited that yet. I was going to cut half of it out. Yeah. And that was, honestly, that's kind of what makes these original versions so magnificent in that way, is like the limitations that they had to deal with. Like,
it's the same with film versus digital film.
Yeah.
It's the limitations made more creativity.
Exactly, yeah.
In a general sense. So your medium games are going to be just a little bit better.
Yeah.
Because they needed to be more creative with the physical things that were in their way.
Yeah, I mean, look at FF12 on PS2. It looks fucking awesome.
But now you can do everything.
And like what they did with what I've heard, at least from the Silent Hill remasters, one of the things they do in Silent Hill is to combat the crappiness of the graphics at the time. Everything is shrouded in mist, like there's fog everywhere, and it adds to like the horror element because you can't see shit. Right. But they remaster Silent Hill 2, and most of the fog is gone, and the game's not really scary looking anymore. Like it doesn't have that intense fear because you can't see a goddamn thing because it's the worst fog you've ever fucking encountered in your life.
Sure.
But it's gone because they put it there because the PS2 couldn't handle everything that was going on. So they put fog in to make it like function better. It wasn't too stressful on the system. But they remaster it to the new system, and it takes the soul out of it, kind of. So like 12, like we've mentioned many times, less pixels per character. Game looks better. It's because they put it on the console and they knew what the console was. 10 was their first foray into PS2. They don't really know what it is. 12, they've got it figured out. It's one of the best looking PS2 games I've ever played. It might be the best looking PS2 game.
They had to make it as good looking as they could within their confinement.
Yeah,
so
and
they
the game
figured out a way to do that.
Yeah, exactly. And the game looks better than it actually is on PS2. They had to dumb the thing down by a lot. You can crack it on your PC and it looks fucking awesome.
That's what I mean by the uncompressed sort of thing as well. So there is a certain image that's there, but like, look, that image is not going to look. It's not going to be presented as good on some things. So like with FF8, they needed the scan lines in there. If you straight up play the Steam version, which is not a remaster, there's no scan lines, and thus it's kind of just blocky and weird looking.
Yeah.
So you kind of need the old television in order to really get the old image.
Right, and we see it with the FF9 remaster. When I was doing that jump rope mini game and that like disturbing image of those girls with the rope, and it's like they're turning a fucking wheel, but they're not touching the rope at all. That's one of those things. Like they remastered it, and I don't know how they missed it because they put a trophy in there to jump rope 1,000 times, and I assume they had to test that.
Yeah, man, all that stuff is the same with movies. So now, as long as you got the storage for it, you can keep filming, and you can do a million different angles with a bunch of different cameras. But at a time, there was a reel of film that you had bought for the day, and you will run out of film. So you have to be very selective in where you're going to put the camera and when you're going to shoot and how many takes you're going to shoot. There was a point in time when that, unless you're Stanley Kubrick and you're like, I'm only going to have 12 people on staff the entire time we're going to film for 2 years. That's different. But most movies, there was a certain physical restraint. And thus you had to creatively solve problems.
So in a way, they're almost better.
You get a cool shot in a movie now, you forget it. You get a cool shot in a movie from like the 70s, like just like an image on the screen, and it's like you remember it. You remember it because it's just amazing. It's different. It's so different because like now it's like, oh well, they can do that shot anytime.
Yeah, they don't have a limitation.
Yeah. And also they're doing digital editing, so they're cutting away from the really good shots, the really cool single shots. Sorry, this is a super bad tangent, but I was listening to the interview with Peter Bogdanovich interviewing Orson Welles, and he was talking about, doing coverage for a scene, which coverage is when you have one camera does a master shot, which is like a wide shot where everybody does the scene, all the actors do the scene in one place, and you see it all. Then you come in for medium shots or close-ups, so that's the individual actors. Then in the editing room, you cut back and forth. He was talking about, doing coverage versus doing coverage basically is what TV is most of the time. Versus doing a scene in one shot. And like an entire shot. So the camera will move with the people, and then they'll make different compositions on screen based upon where the actors are and the cameras are, and they're like doing a dance almost. All the people on set and the actors while the scene is being done. Spielberg does it quite a bit. Modern day. Well, they'll do a 3-minute scene. It's all in one shot with maybe one cutaway. Used to be kind of a pretty standard thing. And Orson Welles said that's what separated the men from the boys. And he said directors. He said that's what separates the men from the boys, is that the men, in his opinion, could do an entire scene in one shot and have it be successful. And then the boys, of course, do coverage, which I thought was really interesting. And now when you're watching movies, it is coverage city. And you only have to go back 10 years and you'll see that there is way more restraint. And 10 years past that, way more restraint than that as far as like where camera blocking is and stuff like that. So I know this is really nerdy film talk, but you could say the same thing with video games. Like there's only so much space on this cartridge.
Yeah.
So before you could do the multi-disc switch thing, there was a lot of restraint.
Yeah.
You could only have this much space on your game. So you can't have too much text. You got to be really,
you
finite
can't have
with the
that
text.
extra number.
You
slot.
can't go crazy with the colors and the graphics. You have to be very specific with what you want to do. And so there's an artistry, there's a skill actually in that. It's not just artistry. There's still artistry now, but there's artistry with skill.
Yeah.
And you have to, the constraints kind of like they force people to be more creative. So yeah, there is a lot of interesting things with that. As far as how it holds up visually, I guess that depends on your taste. I mean, I can still watch black and white movies and not have a single problem. I can watch silent movies, one every month or so. Can't watch them too much. I'll keep falling asleep because silent movies put me to sleep real quick. But
yeah. Good is good, I guess.
Good is good. That's
And like I said, I think it's just the last one on any given console is going to look
that's
great.
another thing. That's another reason why I'm always like pushing for remasters. Like just remaster what you did before and just make it look good. Make it look as good as it can on the screens that we play on now. You don't have to redo this game entirely.
Yeah.
In my opinion. So. And then the other question we got, I'm not sure if we did this last week. Shinru asks, Wii Shop channel is shutting down January 31st, 2019. I thought I had gotten my Tale of whatever, Crystal Chronicles.
My Life as a King,
My Life as a
Dark
King,
Lord.
My Life as a Dark Lord.
Are those the two?
Those are the two that are download only for Wii.
I'm pretty sure I have them both.
Okay. I still need to check mine. I will do it before January 31st.
Okay.
So thank you, Shinru, and that's a good thing. If you ever wanted to play My Life as a King or My Life as a Dark Lord, I guess you got to get on there.
Yeah. Who knows if I don't know if they've added it to anywhere else, like Wii U store or anything like that. But
someone said something about one of the games or both of the games being on the Wii U store.
Oh, okay.
So maybe it's not a big deal.
If you're one of the 10 people who bought a Wii U,
maybe
jump on it.
If both our Wii's just kick the bucket within that time, then I guess we'll have to get a Wii U. But
yeah, mine might already be dead. I haven't plugged it in for months now. I wouldn't know.
It just might be.
I wouldn't know if it died.
Anyway, so last time we did have a question from us to you. Which number is that? There it is.
So last week we asked, did Zodiac Age change your opinion of Final Fantasy XII? Also, which version do you prefer and why? Corey Bonsack, yes, I played it when it first came out, but did not finish it because I was a full-time student. I think it was a mixture of nostalgia and the 4x speed. I recently played through FF13, and every time I got in...
It was a mixture of nostalgia and the cocaine that came with the game.
And substance abuse. Every time I got on it made it seem like a chore. Everything in that game was a grind, even the boss battles. That is true. I was excited to get on and play FF12. It did not ever feel like a grind. I have played 6, 7, 9, 10, 12, and 15, and I think 12 might be my favorite now.
Oh, wow.
So it changed it
made
quite a
it
bit.
go from, didn't finish it to number 1.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It is pretty fucking fun. Alistair says, well, I already appreciated FF12 more after it came out. I think other subsequent Final Fantasy games made me look back and see it in a different way. 13 reminded me of how good the dialogue and story in 12 was. 14 got me into MMO proper, so I can now appreciate the FAO MMO stylings of FF12. FF-FO, I guess.
It's FO.
FF15 reaffirmed my belief that the Gambit system should be fucking mandatory for real-time party-based RPGs to avoid stupid AI, and 15 also made me realize how good the hunts in 12 are. I massively prefer the Zodiac Age, and I think you'd have to be pretty contrarian to believe the original version, or to prefer the original version, honestly. There's so many quality of life changes that alone make it more fun to play than the original, like the removal of cues for magic, the on-screen map, and of course the 4x speed. Job system was a massive improvement.
What if we got rid of the 4x speed, though? That is my question.
Then fuck it.
It's the same game.
Yeah. Job system was a massive improvement over the license board, in my opinion. It encouraged creativity and making choices as opposed to everyone being good at everything, so just get everything. Riathmus says, definitely Zodiac Age. His reasons: 1, the class system; 2, break damage limit.
Gotta love that class system.
Oh, yeah.
Let's bring that class system back.
I agree. Break damage limit combined with license board changes made your characters more powerful than vanilla. 3, trials mode. Then vanilla. I don't know, man.
I think that's a nude clan. Did we talk about that on UFF?
Yeah, it was UFF.
Okay, that was
where
on
I brought
UFF.
up
that's good.
The vanilla addiction thing.
Okay. Maybe we've brought him up on both shows now.
Probably, yeah.
Probably. Gosh.
Light a match, man, and get a vanilla candle scent. 2 or 4 times speed, and buff to magics. Playing the game again made me really appreciate the dialogue, and the better treasure chest takes out a lot of the MMO-esque grinding that was in the vanilla version. I'm still not a fan of the plot, though. Also, FYI, the FF10 remaster is exactly the same as the original FF10 International, in that they both have both versions of the sphere grid. The remaster didn't add anything compared to the OG International version. So it's not surprising that the Zodiac Age doesn't have the option of OG and Zodiac Age license boards. Yeah, that's fair, but I still would like it. It's a Blu-ray disc. I can't imagine they couldn't fit the old license board on there if you wanted to play that version.
I don't know. Even then.
But that is good to know. So that does make sense in a way, but I would still rather have seen them just include both versions of the game, because it's a fucking Blu-ray. You can't tell me that FF12 takes up a fucking Blu-ray.
I see someone was using a guide.
No, I pulled that up for you.
I use
guides.
Sorry, there's a Caves of Narsh tab on our computer here.
I was going to show you this. The story missions in chapter 4.
Oh.
25, and the first one had 10.
How much does the second one have? About the same as
11.
number 1. Why?
And 12.
Why split it up into chapters? Okay,
I don't know.
This drives me nuts. I was just thinking about this the other night. I'm like, I really need to do some more physical reading. I'm doing a lot of book on tapes, but I need to, I got about an hour before I have to go to bed.
Oh, I know
after
you're going to get on, yeah.
Why are there chapters in books if you're going to make chapters 50 to 100 pages long? Why even have a chapter? Because the chapter, to me, is a part of a story. I can't talk right now. A part of a story that you can then put the bookmark in at the chapter spot and then continue on, and it's a good stopping point.
Yeah, it's a good place to go to sleep.
What is with authors in huge chapters? Why?
What are you trying to read?
I'm trying to read this old paleontology expedition book. And the chapters are not. The chapters are not. They're all over the place. Some of them are really short, and some of them are like, "F you, I'm 50 pages long."
Yeah, deal with it, bitch.
Deal with it. And Wheel of Time, which I'm almost done with, Wheel of Time had a prologue that was like 120 pages long.
That is ridiculous.
And the entire point of a chapter, I don't give a crap what you think, author. If you want to do that, just do it in different, in books, like book 1, book 2, book 3, in the big sections. Why even have chapters if they're not for me to put my bookmark in? Okay, that's what they're for. So let's all bring upon it. Let's remember that Michael Crichton. Let's do Michael Crichton chapters. Okay, those are like 3 pages each. That's how a chapter should be.
Yeah.
It should be a real quick, okay, I can pick this book up for a second, put it down, and know exactly where I'm at. There, I'm not worried about when I put my bookmark on a random page, where was I within this space? I hate it, dude. I hate it. Long chapters piss me off. They piss me off. I'm going to do the same amount of reading anyway. It's not like you're changing something. Ooh, long chapters are for big boys. No, long chapters are for people who have 4 hours to read one chapter of a damn book.
Yeah. I like what Stephen King does. He, in The Dark Tower, at least. No, I think he does this in all of his books. He has, he'll have it's 5 chapters.
Stephen King has beautiful bite-sized chapters for the most part.
Yeah, and what it is like, here's chapter 1,
and he's the biggest freaking selling author. So, hey, authors, here's a clue to success. Don't have freakishly long chapters. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, what he does is he has, like, the book will be 700 pages long, and it'll have 7 chapters. But it'll have different sections in that chapter. It'll be like, okay, this guy's story, and then like it'll have like 60 sub chapters in it.
Okay, I can
stop on a sub chapter,
or like the double white line.
Yeah,
some
something
books
that interrupts
some
in
sort
a way.
of break.
Yeah,
so I can know where my spot is.
Yeah, instead of like you said, just like reading, like searching half of that page to find out where the fuck you stopped. Yeah.
Yeah,
Tactics is going to do it to you too. Chapter 4 of Tactics is quite long.
Man, dude, I had a friend growing up that actually told me, "Yeah, I like long chapters." I about slapped him because I had the same opinion when I was a kid too. I was like, "What are chapters? Why are chapters disgustingly long in some books and really short in others?" It's like Jurassic Park was like my favorite novel as a kid, right? The chapters are not really chapters. It says the character name and then their point of view, and it's always the longest it ever was like 12 pages.
Yeah.
The longest it ever was.
Yeah.
And Michael Crichton's kind of that way for most of his stuff. Michael Crichton's Michael Crichton and Stephen King, very fast reads, very nice for bookmarks.
Yeah, Gary Paulson's that way too. I think I was reading Transil Saga when I was a kid, and I think there were 3 chapters and 2 pages. I was like, fuck, man. I mean, I blew through the book because it was awesome, but I could have stopped many times.
Yeah. Long chapters piss me off.
Yeah, well, chapter 4 is gonna really buck you in this game. That's
why not? If it's 4 times the amount of the others, why not have it be an 8 chapter thing? Why have it be 4 chapters?
I guess it could be similar to like a.
You could say acts, but no act should be 4 times the size of the other act.
Well, I mean, if you break it up in the sense of like, this sentence is about this topic. The next sentence is about the next topic, which adds to this other topic. And then we have a new paragraph for like a new idea. Like maybe you could look at it that way. So chapter 4 is long because it's on like a specific plot point the whole time.
Or no chapters at all. With the ability to pause the darn game.
I can pause mine in the battle and leave.
I can't pause mine. I've pressed the start, select button, I've pressed X, you can't pause. Can't pause in battle.
That's crazy to me. I don't understand.
Nope, I don't understand either. I can't pause on the Earth screen either. So whenever I take those 5-minute breaks for my stream, I exit the game and come back in.
That's excessive.
Crazy. I can't stand that time. I want the time to be true.
Yeah, I agree. I do that with my games too. If I have like a 10-minute break, I quit usually. If it doesn't pause like it should, which is like a thing now with PS4 games, I realize. Like 15 does it, but then so does Horizon Zero Dawn. I found that out. I was like, how do we have so many fucking hours in Horizon Zero Dawn? And I paused it one day and like the clock just kept running. I'm like,
why did they do that?
What's the point of a fucking clock if it doesn't stop when I stop?
What is the point of the clock?
I want to know. Yeah, I want to know how long I've played this game, not how long the fucker's been running in my console. I don't give a shit about that. That's like asking, how long I've been, or like when I'm measuring steps. It's like, well, how many steps did I think about taking? Like, how many steps did I take without the stepometer in my pocket? Like, I don't give a shit about that. If I cared, I would have put it in my pocket. I don't care about how long the game has been in the PS4. The PS4 can, like, I don't know, maybe it has its own, like, Nude Clan hog score or some shit. Like, oh, I ran this disc at 800 RPMs for 60 hours. But Caleb was only there
I'm
for
really
40.
just clocking it for my warranty.
Yeah, like, what is this? Yeah, I don't understand.
So stupid. I agree with you. That's so dumb.
It's
a modern game, too, guys.
Yeah.
Get the pause function figured out. What is wrong with you?
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense at all.
Okay.
So dumb. And
All
at
right.
15, there are hours of game that I was not actually playing on my time. Hours, and it hurts.
All right, I think we can wrap it up today, Schweiss. Go check out our other shows, Nude Clan, which we will be recording on twitch.tv/NudeClan Gaming, and Godzilla Podcast, Super Sexy, Swinging Dead Fiction, and the Puff Puff Hour, a Dragon Quest podcast, if you want to check that out as well. That's all I got, Schweiss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, well, I guess we will see you guys next week. Till then, enjoy the Chapter 4 grind.